Hi everybody, welcome to Derek's live web chat show. This is being posted on YouTube and also on the Negotiators podcast. I'm delighted to see everybody on live and everybody that's watching the recording. Today I'm going to talk about negotiation skills, my pet subject, something that I've studied for over 30 years and have made some horrendous mistakes and also some horrendous good deals. It's a subject that actually most people think they know about, and I thought I knew about it until I started studying it, got into one or two really difficult situations and realized that I didn't know what I didn't know, which is the unconscious incompetence for those people that are trainers and speakers. I've also got with me Ali the physio. Give everybody a wave, Alison. Alison is a fantastic chartered physiotherapist from Woking in Surrey, Hillview Physiotherapy Clinic, a great friend of mine, and she's going to give us some tips, and she's agreed to come on and give us a few tips once a week, which is absolutely fantastic. But on negotiation, the first thing I wanted to show you was one of the mistakes that people make in a negotiation, in a sales situation. They don't sit in the right place at the meeting. Now, I hope you can all see that. Can you see that? Think thumbs up. I'll use a black pen. If that's a rectangular meeting room, as most meeting rooms all around the world are, 80% of people, 80% of the time sit like this, which is ridiculous, because actually you're already sitting further apart than the client, because the right distance to sit apart from a client or stand at a client is, of course, at arm's length. That's why we have good arm's length meetings. So straight away, that's my territory, probably 2'6" or 3 foot. That's the client's territory. How can we build rapport, connect with them when we're sitting in a conflict across the table, eyeball to eyeball? So how might we get out of this? Well, these are my recommendations. Number one, when you enter the room, and of course, you're not on time, are you, at a meeting? You're early. Don't be on time, as my friend David Harmer says. Be early. Get to the room early, even if it's on their premises. And this is the seat I would choose, this one there. And why I choose it is when they come in, by the way, I'm not going to sit down. I'm going to be standing up in a good posture, ready to greet them. When they come in, I can walk across, shake hands with them. My papers are there. And then hopefully they're either going to sit there or there, and we can negotiate across the side of the table, connecting much better in rapport. If, and I know what you're thinking, if they do sit there, first of all, we know we're in big trouble, because the distance people are away from us is the distance of the connection. But at least at that point, we can pick up our papers and move round there. Now, I was working with someone on a Saturday afternoon, Johanna, and Johanna, I was explaining this to Johanna, and I said, I can't understand why most people don't get this most of the time. And I know it's obvious, but it's got to be part of your preparation and planning before you go into a negotiation. And if you've got your people with you, make sure you brief them beforehand of what you're doing and what you're up to. Now, before I'm going to let Alison tell us a little bit about our posture, and probably my posture, I'm always in trouble. I want to tell you about a negotiation I got in Melbourne, which made me really cross. Yeah. So we were flying, actually I haven't muted everybody, so I'm going to mute everybody first. Alison, you'll have to unmute yourself. Sonny and I flew around the world because we got a cheaper ticket to fly around the world to Australia than actually flying directly there. And I was speaking at the Melbourne Speaking Convention for the Australian Speaking Association. And we were pretty tired. We'd been to Auckland and we flew into Melbourne in the afternoon. And I went up to the hotel receptionist, as I usually do, tried to connect with her, build a bit of rapport, mirror and match her body language, all the things that we should do. And she said, got your room ready, Mr. Arden, it's on the 42nd floor. And I said, I don't like heights. Could I have a lower room? And she said, no, you can't. That's the one you've booked. I'm really sorry. And I said, I'm not actually sure she was sorry, to be honest with you. But I said, oh, okay. okay, but I really do need a lower room because I don't like lifts, etc., etc. And she said, well, that's the only room. And my best suggestion is to you, you don't look out the window. And that was my introduction to Australia, which certainly didn't get me off to a good start. I had a bit of jet lag. Sally and I were cross, and we had to be on the 42nd floor. So I guess I got a funny feeling about Melbourne. My negotiation skills didn't work that time. After we've had Alison on, I've got a couple of other stories that I want to share with you. And then don't forget the chat box to fire any questions at me. Two things there: preparation on where you sit at a meeting. Clearly, if you want to influence people, they got to like you, and the more you can influence them by sitting without any barriers, mirroring and matching their body language will be hugely beneficial. So, Alison, welcome back to Derek's live web show. And what tips have you got for us today?
Okay, thanks for asking me on, Derek. Great to be here. So the biggest one at the moment, I think, from all of us who are working from home, including me, so new challenges, is watching posture. I think if you have a home office normally, or if you work in an office, you have a good setup usually with your computer and your chair, so you know that you're sitting well and you don't strain your neck and all the muscles around it. But I think sitting on a kitchen stool or a kitchen chair, sitting like this and slumping, is putting huge strain onto people's shoulders. So I'd really like people to take a bit of time to think about, okay, so I'm sitting here all day working, how am I going to sit? How we're not going to sit is sideways with the chin poking like this. I could give you, Derek could show you that because he's quite good at that. Tortoise position, I call that. So just really take a few minutes to think, where am I? Put your shoulder blades back and down. Make sure your lower back's well supported. And just try and be in a relaxed position, but not a scrunched one. The more you sit like this, the worse your neck's going to feel. And actually, I've got a few people coming through to me on video conference at the moment saying, oh, my neck is so bad, I'm sat at home, what can I do? So the answer is check out your posture and actually remember to move. If you don't move every 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you're going to get stiffer and stiffer. You get build-up of lactic acid in your muscles, they get sore, they get stiff, you get a headache. So, it's all about sitting well and move. Stand up, walk around the chair, sit down, move your head from side to side. It's not difficult stuff. It's just remembering to do it. So there you are, tip number one.
How can we remember to do it then, Alison?
Well, a lot of people set something on their phone. You can actually set a reminder for 20, 30 minutes, and that will put move on it, or neck, or whatever you think will work for you. Cup of tea, that's a lot of tea. That helps.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I've used that when I remember, I must admit, and it's really, really important. And go for a walk around the garden, or on a balcony, or just go out. I've got a question on the chat box already. So thanks for that, Alison. I'll take that. How do you build rapport when negotiating over a Zoom video call? Great question. And I was asked a question on LinkedIn, and please fire any questions to me on LinkedIn and join me on LinkedIn on Saturday night. I posted something on negotiating, and this person came in and said, what are your 10 top tips for negotiating on video, on Zoom calls? And I'll show you those later. I've got a slide of it just to go through, and I posted them in my newsletter this morning as well. And they're my top 10 that I came up with at the time. So if you've got any more, but how do you build rapport on Zoom? Well, the first thing is to be the first person on the call. And if you can be the host, that means you control all the switches and you can let people in. So you know who's coming in, and you can then let them in early and talk to them, chat to them, as I did to some of you that came in early. I switched this on at 4:45, so I was in the room at 4:45, and I let the person in, first person in at 16:53, and had a chat with them. More difficult for the people that come in at 5 o'clock, but when you see someone like Tim Durkin coming in, you talk to Tim in front of everybody and you connect and build rapport. Pretty difficult building rapport with the people that haven't got their video cameras on, but that's fine. That's fine. You never know. There's a great WhatsApp clip flying around today about dressing on Zoom, and this guy puts a suit on and a tie just from here. It's very funny. Does that help? But we need to build rapport at every stage. And I just can't believe that people get the fundamentals of sales, influence, and negotiation wrong, which are get there early, mirror match the body language, the voice tonality of the other person, shake their hand when we could shake their hands. I know we can't do that now. Give them an elbow touch or whatever it is. Keep records of what they like, what they know about, if you've met them before, etc. Never miss a piece of information. Never miss a piece of information. Now, I'm going to be brave again and share my screen and show you a few slides. You should be seeing my slides in slide view. Can everybody see that? I assume you can. I can't see you, so yes, I can now. So Alison, can you see those slides just for me?
I can, yeah.
Good, brilliant. Okay. Well, this is Lauren. If you were negotiating with Lauren, how do you think you're getting on at the moment?
Not well.
Not well, because she's got her arms folded. She looks a bit grumpy. She's got her hair back. She's got her mouth, in a sort of grumpy look, and she's got her arms folded. Now, I want you all to fold your arms for me, please. Fold your arms now. This is not negotiable. You've got to do it. And I want you to look down and see if you've got your left arm over your right arm or your right arm over your left arm. How many of you, put in the chat box, please, if you're a left over right? Just put in the chat box, that's me. Right over left doesn't matter. Do you know what it means if you're left over right? It means you're incredibly sexy. But if you're right over left, do you know what that means? You're incredibly good looking. What's the point of that? I do that every time I talk to big audiences. We have a bit of fun with it, but the serious point is, ladies and gentlemen, that fold your arms the other way now, please. Fold them right over left or left over right. How does it feel? It generally feels very, very weird, doesn't it? That's really strange. And what the point I make to people is negotiating is strange. You have to get outside your comfort zone. You have to be able to accept some conflict. There's always conflict when you're negotiating. If I got something that you want and you're not prepared to pay that price for it, then we've got some conflict, and negotiation is getting to a win-win situation where we haven't got conflict. So I say to people often, fold your arms the other way before you go into a serious meeting. Make sure you've done your research and your preparation and you're really ready for it. And then you'll be in a position to really go for it. So I'm just going back to share my screen again with you, and I am going to share this slide. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd submit to you that negotiation sits right bang in the middle of presenting. If you can't present, you're not going to get to the negotiation table. If you can't pitch, you're not going to get there. If you can't sell yourself, sell your ideas, sell yourself to the other people, you can't.
We've got nothing on the screen at the moment.
Nothing on the screen at the moment. Okay, thanks for that. No idea why that is. It just shows to show screen share. Okay, let's have another go. Is that on the screen now, guys? Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, thanks for that, and thanks for bearing with me. If you can't influence and you can't haggle and you can't handle conflict and you don't come across as a positive person with positive energy, because people buy people and they buy people with positive energy. And right bang in the middle of that is the word ego, the word negotiation, and the second, third, and fourth letter of the word negotiate is ego. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're negotiating, do your preparation, put your ego away. And if the other side's got a big ego, then massage it as much as you can. Now, the next thing I ask people to do is to rate their negotiation skills on a scale of 0 to 100. So whatever you feel your skills are, would you just put that number in the chat box for me? So that would be absolutely fantastic. Just the first feel. And again, start with the end in mind. What I want to know is, after this session or after some more sessions that I'm going to run, or if I'm running a masterclass for a client at the end of the day, on a scale of 0 to 100, where are they now? And what's more important is in 6 months' time, where will they be? Because even if you're a 90, how good is good enough when you're negotiating. And I knew I wasn't good enough when I was working for Barclays and got thrown out of a meeting at in Tesco's in 30 seconds, which I've shared with some people and I will share again. But I want to tell you about this little negotiation that I got involved in, and it was all to do with a vineyard in Bordeaux called Chateau Lascombe's, owned by Alexis Lachine, the Bordeaux company. And I can't tell you the whole story because we'd be here all night, but suffice to tell you there were three parties to the negotiation. There was the company in France, there was the company, a big drinks company in the UK, and there was the bank who I was working for, my client. And there was a dispute on a £10 million facility. It was about 100 million francs at the time, just before France joined the euro. And we did our preparation. I will never stop talking about preparation. And we said, what are we going to do about this? Because the French people aren't listening to us. Right, we'll go to France and we'll see them. We'll eyeball them. And as we know, there's no substitute for seeing people eyeball to eyeball in a meeting. Well, they didn't want to see us. So actually, they said they would only see us at 5:30 in the evening. So we got over there. Our preparation was to have an English-speaking Frenchman with us, an English-speaking Englishman who spoke French. I got this right. Who spoke French, but he was briefed, if he heard them speaking in French, never to speak in France, because when we had a timeout, he would translate to us what they were saying about us. And it's a good job he did, because they were whispering amongst themselves like this. English people, they don't really get this. We'll stitch them up, and words to that effect in the meeting. And when we took a timeout, which is a break in the meeting, as you know, absolutely crucial, he could translate to us. Anyway, they turn up at 6:30, not 5:30. They keep us waiting for an hour. We go into the meeting, we sit across the desks. There's three of us and four of them. They look a bit smug, and they offer us £1 million for us to take back to our client of the 10 million. We laugh at that, of course, and say, no, we want the full payment. That's what you owe us. They suggest we take a break and a timeout, and they use these exact words. We've set up a meeting room for you to go and call back to the UK to get authority. And I heard the word set up. And of course, if something feels a bit wrong or smells a bit wrong, guess what? It probably is wrong. So we went into this room. I was with my boss, a guy called Sinbad Coleridge, which I learned a lot of. And he said, don't say a word. There's a funny feeling about this room. It's probably bugged. And yeah. And I'm sure he was right. So we had to walk around the block, and then we came back. And the interesting thing was, now they were getting a bit agitated. It was about 8 o'clock. And the lead negotiator for this company said, if you don't agree this and take our money, you'll miss your flight back to Heathrow, the 9:45 from Charles de Gaulle Airport. And I went, oh, wow, okay. And finally, my boss said, well, actually, we're booked into the hotel around the corner, so we can stay all night. At this point, the lead negotiator paled up. He went absolutely white, and he said, well, I have to go at 10 o'clock because it's my wife's birthday. And if I don't take her out to dinner tonight, I'll probably end up with a divorce. And so the time issue that they were trying to play on us, we reversed into them. Anyway, these negotiations went on for a very long time, and I'll tell you some more about it at some stage. To cut a long story short, we did get the money back for ourselves and our clients, but we adjourned the meeting and came back the week after. What were the takeaways from that, from a learning point of view? Number one, preparation. If you think something's a bit funny, it probably is. If you're going over to France for a meeting, 5:30 at night is a bit of a strange time to set up a meeting. And it's also a bit odd to turn up late when you've got people coming across to see you. The next thing is, if you really do, I think I've been bugged a couple of times in meetings. I just had a funny feeling about it. If you think it's wrong, then be careful. There's all sorts of listening devices that can be bought. But, you know, I'm not expecting, I know you probably won't do negotiations like that. I never thought I would. But at the end of the day, you never know. Whatever negotiation, you might be buying a house, selling a house, buying a car, selling a car. All these things are exactly the same principles. So taking a break and taking a time out is very important in any negotiation, any situation that's getting emotional. Taking 5 minutes, taking 10 minutes, having a walk around the block, cooling off period, they call it in financial services, don't they, etc., etc. Don't be pressurized, and at the end of the day, make sure you're very clear on the goals that you want to achieve. Now we've got a few scores in the boxes. Let's have a look at a few scores in the boxes. We've got some right over lefts, left, left, left over right, left, left, unusual. And John Lisby's an 85. So if I was coaching John, and I'm the last person to coach John because he's a great negotiator, I would say to John, what would it take to be a 90? From Derek Atkinson, a 70. Derek, what would it take to be a 75? This is a great way to keep thinking about how you are doing. And we have scores from 40, thanks for your honesty, to 85, which is pretty general. But the real question is, what can you do to get to be better? Because we are negotiating all the time. And I don't think there's ever been a time that we've been negotiating more. Second World War, First World War, or whatever, but actually we didn't have the internet, we weren't locked down, etc. So we're going to be negotiating even more when we come out of the lockdown. So any questions for me in the chat box? And I'm going to go to Alison, Ali the physio, for her next tip. Ali.
Hi. Well, I'm just thinking about negotiating. Actually, I negotiate every day with my patients to persuade them to do the exercises that they don't really want to do, but they know they should. So maybe I'm better at it than I thought. But I just thought we'd talk a little bit about repetitive strain injury, RSI. I'm sure you've probably all heard of that. If you haven't, it's basically overuse of the upper limb, usually sitting at a PC. It could be chopping logs non-stop with doing the same thing and hurting something. But actually, it's all about, again, being stuck in one position. So when you're at your PC, try and make sure that you've got your wrists just a little bit up rather than down. You have them down on the keyboards like this. You're putting strain all up through here, goes up through into the nerves in the neck. And if you do it for 7 hours a day, you're going to end up with discomfort somewhere between your neck and your hand. And there's a very easy way, apart from sitting well, to stop that. And that is actually just to move. Again, I like movement, as you can guess. Shake your hands, wriggle your shoulders, and just make sure that you don't get set in that position, so that your nerves are getting the same message the whole time. And that really is Derek's asked me about tech neck before, which is the same thing. It's where you're stuck in one position and your nerves are getting squashed as you sit there because they're not being moved. So tip number 2, shake your hands, move your arms, don't stay sat in one position, and keep your wrists a little bit higher than your arm. There you go.
Brilliant, Alison, thanks. One of the things I learned very quickly from my sports injuries was, if you go to the doctor will probably prescribe you some painkillers and tell you to rest for 3 or 4 weeks. If you go to a physio or a chiropractor or whatever, they'll probably say you need to stretch it, you need to exercise it rather than sit still. Now, I'll probably get told off by Alison for saying that, but I'm going to say it anyway. Alison, what's the official version from a chartered physiotherapist?
Definitely don't get stuck in one position. I think I've said that a few times this afternoon. No, it's not. It's very rare that we actually say to somebody, you've got to rest and not move. That used to be the way many years ago, but now we know that you need to keep those neurons working, you need to make those muscles work, and that way they will heal themselves more quickly. You want blood flow and you want movement to help things heal more quickly. So you're right. I hate to say it, but you're right.
Okay, I'm going to tell you 2 more quick negotiation stories. Any questions for me? And then we will go back to Alison for her final tip. I'll tell you about the fantastic speaker that we have on Wednesday, Simon Hazeldine, and I'll fire away at questions. I'll turn the recording off at that point and I'll stay on the line for as long as you want. I was tasked with the job in Barclays to fly to Toronto and see a client, and then from Toronto to San Francisco. This is in the days when banks had lots of money and not much sense, but Barclays had lent a lot of money to this particular company, and I was asked to go and suss it out. So I was pretty pleased to get a trip out to the States, but it was all in a bit of a rush. And I was with two of my colleagues, and I was telling them I was studying negotiating, and I'm a serial negotiator, negotiate everything. Never take yes or no for an answer. You just try and get something more or less. And we were flying to Toronto to San Francisco on Air Canada, and they were 5 hours late. We got to our hotel in San Francisco, the Westin, right in the middle of San Francisco. Fabulous hotel at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they said, go on then, Derek, negotiate us a deal on the hotel. So I went out, I said, well, you stay out the way, you two. And I went up to the lady on reception, and I built rapport with her. I mirrored and matched her body language. And I said, we've got a bit of a problem, actually. We've got a meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning. So we're only going to be in your hotel for 4 hours. Would you be able to do it for us at half price? Thinking, not a chance, pal, I can't re-let the room. And she said, oh, I'll see what I can do, sir. And she gave us the room at half price, which saved Barclays quite a big hotel bill. And I didn't think she'd do that, but it was great fun. Guys, the point I want to make is, if you want to say something and ask a question that's difficult, slow your voice down, turn your head a little bit like Alison's dog does, and say it quieter, because the reptilian brain, if it hears something really loud, it goes defensive. But if you say something soft, then guess what? The reptilian brain, the part of the brain that all animals have got, doesn't go defensive. It hears somebody that's not aggressive. And the final story I'm going to tell you is one that my pal Peter would never have believed. We're Peter and I are Arsenal supporters, Arsenal season ticket supporters, and we got 2 tickets for the 6th round of the FA Cup, which was being played at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea's ground. I get into the ground early with a pal of mine who I'm helping do a bit of marketing. I had a deal with him where I did some marketing for his golf club, and he gave me a golf subscription, free, serial negotiating again. Anyway, Peter rings us from the underground station at Fulham Broadway saying, Derek, I've forgotten my ticket. I'm going home. I said, hang on a minute, Peter, don't go home straight away. Let's see if we can get you in without a ticket. So Paddy, who I'm with, says, no chance. I said, well, let's get a plan in preparation. Let's see what we can do. I said, Peter, don't go away till I ring you back. So we went down to see one of the Chelsea stewards right on the front. And I went into my good old London accent. I said, dear mate, got a bit of a problem. My mate's stuck at Fulham Broadway station, and he's left his ticket behind. Is there anything you can do to help us? Question, silence, mirror the body language, see what happens. And he said, not much chance of that, mate. What, after 9/11, getting you into a ground without a ticket? I said, well, perhaps you could try. Anyway, I'm connecting with him, building rapport. Even though he's a Chelsea steward and I'm in the Arsenal end, he says, I'll see what I can do, but don't hold your breath. So he goes off to see his boss, and he says, the boss is in a good mood. He said, it might work. Let's see. Tell your friend to be outside gate CF or something, and keep his hand in the air so we know who he is. I'll go outside and get him with my boss, and if we can, we'll get him in. And I think, wow, we got a bit of result here. Let's not hold our breath. Anyway, to cut a long story short, Peter got in without a ticket for a 6th round FA Cup tie at a pretty aggressive ground, Stamford Bridge, for those of you that don't know this part of London, and without a ticket. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't think. But the message is, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't try, you'll never succeed. If you don't have a plan, it won't work. And therefore, think it through. So when you go to buy something, you go and ask for a discount or whatever it is, make sure you plan it, make sure you ask the right person. And every problem is an opportunity to try and get a deal. Last thing for a bit of fun, guys, is that I don't know if that's the right way round, Alison, is it? Can you read that? It's my mature student discount card, which I have a bit of fun with. I give it away to people on seminars. I say, go and try that out, because you never know, you'll get a discount. Pretend you're a student and see what happens. And next time I'll tell you a couple of stories about that. So I'm going to conclude with one last tip from Ali the physio, if that works, Ali. Then I'm going to answer any questions in the chat box. There aren't any at the moment, so if you've got any, guys, ladies, gentlemen, please put them in the chat box, and then we'll stop the recording and open to any questions that aren't on the recording. Ali, one last tip from you, please.
Okay, so tip number 3 for today is all about breathing. So I guess I'm on the same theme about sitting in one place and not moving. When we're busy, we forget to breathe deeply. We just breathe with the upper part of our chest. And in the end, if you don't take a few deep breaths, you can get a lack of concentration. You can feel a bit tired, a bit sleepy. I guess we've all done that when we're trying to work and we've been doing it for a long time. So if you just take a minute or two, sit yourself up straight, just take a breath in through your nose, expand your lungs, and then breathe out again. Try and get the air right down to the bottom of your lungs, not just in the top part. Do 3 of those and move your shoulders around a bit, and then just one more and you'll be...
È andato via, è andato al falenino.
Somebody else there, hello.
Alison, I'm muting everybody. I'm muting everybody again. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry.
So there we go. Tip number 3, make sure you take some deep breaths, because you will improve your concentration. It really works. So I guess today was, make sure that you have a good posture. Make sure you have your hands in a good posture. Move and take, that's 4 tips, and move a lot and take some deep breaths. And hopefully that will help you with your working from home or working anywhere, to be honest.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you very much for that. And Alison will be joining us every week with a few tips, because having known me for a long time and having known that I don't necessarily do all the exercises that she tells me, there will be a lot of reminders coming up for everybody, particularly at this time when we're in lockdown. Question from Derek Atkinson. Online body language isn't the same as if you met face to face. Any tips? Yeah, I think so. Well, first of all, it probably is, Derek, at the end of the day. You can probably see it, even though, you know, I'm in a one-dimensional. If you ask me a difficult question and I move back and I rub my nose, I'm probably not telling you the truth. If you ask me a question and I move back and fold my arms, and you can see that if you look carefully. And if I'm sitting further away also. So I was asked this question over the weekend and I thought about it a lot, and I'm thinking, you can see the body language, but what you really need to do is prepare your questions, ask the question and watch the body language. Now, the other thing you can do, of course, is you can take a time out. You can call your colleague, because in any good negotiation, you need an observer. You could say, oh, can I get back to you in 10 minutes? And if I'm concentrating, it's much more difficult for me to watch the body language. But if I got my pal Martin with me, he can watch the body language while I'm doing the haggling. And you can do exactly the same thing on Zoom. So we're working remotely, but that doesn't mean to say you can't call each other pretty quickly and take a break and come back on the call. One of the things when I'm teaching negotiation that comes across, people feel embarrassed about taking a time out, taking a break. Why feel embarrassed? And usually I'm talking to accountants in the NHS doing a fabulous job. And I say to you, the outcome is more money to spend on the patients if you get a better deal. So if that's the case, why would you feel embarrassed? So if you start with the end in mind and know that if you get a deal, you're going to give the money to charity or whatever you're going to do, that gives you much more confidence. So I hope that answers that. People have got to, you've got to look carefully at body language. You've got to watch what's going on. You know, if people are sitting there like that, that means they're not listening. All this stuff. And I write about it extensively in a couple of books, and I've been fascinated by the subject, and most people don't spot it, don't get it, etc. Question number 2, how do you counter a very low offer when the other party appears to be holding the cards including the purse strings? Well, first of all, Neil, I never believe that everyone holds all the cards. I think that's the first fallacy of any negotiation. You can switch the negotiations round, but you just have to think about how you do that. Sorry about that pigeon that's outside my window cooing, but we can't help all that. So when you go to buy a car, often you think the car dealer's holding all the cards, but actually from the car dealer's point of view, he thinks you're holding all the cards because you've got the cash. If you go into a negotiation without any options and you tell the other side you haven't got any options, yeah, they do hold all the cards. But if you go to a negotiation, you should normally have 3 options. And if there aren't 3, make one up. And I don't mean fib or lie, but you're always going to have options. So we went to negotiate for the Speaking Association's conference, which I negotiated for about 10 times. And the worst thing that happened was when the president said, I want that hotel for my conference. And I'm there trying to negotiate it. And the person hears, oh, they want this hotel. In that case, you've got no options. And I said, no, hang on a minute. We've still got 2 options. We've got the Holiday Inn and we've got the Marriott. Because then you're creating the power. Suddenly, I'm switching the power from me to them. So I never, ever accept that so the other side's got the power. And that's what I advise my clients when I'm coaching negotiations. You have to think outside the box. You have to brainstorm it. You have to mind map it. And you have to figure out how you can create the power. One of the most expensive things is when people get married, because usually they choose the hotel before they negotiate the price of the hotel. And of course, hotel managers are very, very good at negotiating. And I can see it every time that people go have their wedding at this particular hotel, all the dreams of all the things, and they probably pay $5,000-10,000 too much. So Neil, I'd be delighted to talk about that with you more. And if you want to call me or email me, it would be an absolute pleasure. We're out of time, guys. I just want to tell you about the fantastic speaker I have for you at 12:30 on Wednesday. Simon Hazeldine is worked in sales for 20 years. He's not a neuroscientist, but he's studied the brain and the workings of the brain. He's written this fantastic book, Neurocell, and you can see I've folded down all the pages and all sorts of things. He's a professional speaker. He's won awards for professional speaking, spoken all around the world. And I persuaded him to come on the chat show. I spoke to him just now. We're going to have a Zoom call at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning so that we're both prepared to present to you. So I look forward to seeing you. Thank you all for joining. And I'm going to turn the recording off now, and then I'm going to unmute you all and throw everything open for discussions. So thanks very much, and I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. And a particularly thanks to Ali, the physio, for joining us and giving us those 3 tips. And I hope you're stretching your necks and stretching your backs now. See you on Wednesday. Thanks.